All right, welcome everyone. We'll just get underway now that we've got most people on board. So welcome to our webinar for today, which is governance, which is our first part of this little series that we have, and it's governance in action today. And then our next one will be in a month's time. So if you enjoy today, don't forget to sign up for that. So we'll just get things moving. So I'll be moderating the webinars today. My name is Shana. I'll just be making sure that everything runs smoothly for us. If you have any questions at all, you can just fire them down the bottom there. You should see a bar with your Zoom features. So if you just hit the Q&A button, you can fill out any questions that you have, throughout the whole webinar. Just chuck them in there. And then when we get to the end of the webinar, we will go through any questions that we haven't covered. And then, of course, down the bottom as well, you can leave the meeting, or you can check your audio settings down there. So today's panelist is Greg Verhoef from Greg Verhoef Chartered Accountant. So he's the primary here at Greg Verhoef Chartered Accountant, and he, as well as running this business, he also has a lot of experience in other governance places where he's worked as well. So I'll pass over to him. He can probably explain a bit better about his experience.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction there, Shana, and I hope everyone enjoys our webinar today. I'd like to thank those who have tuned in, and of course anyone else who might be watching this online later on our YouTube site. So I've been involved myself with governance at different levels, not only as being a chartered accountant in a CA firm and working with lots of small businesses, but also was on the board of a national body for the best part of 8 or 9 years, and was in Wellington every 6 weeks for that. And also, after finishing that, I've been involved with a local organisation down here that I'm on the board of here. So I've sort of always kept my finger in the pie, if you like, or hand in the game. And this webinar is actually quite good for myself, even just to brush up on some of those roles and what we should be doing as in that governance role. So anyway, thought of the day, Richard Branson. Hopefully everyone knows who Richard is. So even big businesses start small. Everything has to start somewhere, and having a governance structure in place, even for a small business, is beneficial. It's not just something you have to do. It's not just a big business thing. It's you can scale the level of governance, the amount of governance you want to put into your business, and it just pays to have some, even right from the beginning, some sort of thought about the governance. All right, we've got a number of topics to cover off today. These normally go for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe really shorter, or depends how fast I talk. And I'll try to talk a little bit slower because I do get into the habit of just running through things a bit too quick at times. So you can see the agenda there. We're going to flick through those those items there. What is governance? Why it's important? What are the benefits of it? A little bit of what's the difference between management and governance, and then we start looking at some of the theory, the 4 pillars of governance, what a governance plan is, and meeting rhythms might be, and then some final steps. This is quite a big topic, and hence that's why it's split into 2 webinars. We've got the one today, and we'll do the second one in a month's time, which will go into a bit more detail on stuff. So, what is business governance? So it's long-term views on the goals for all stakeholders. Well, that's a definition of it anyway. So you're looking at what it is that the organisation wants to achieve. You're looking at it from all the different perspectives of the shareholders, the owners, the employees, the customers and suppliers. So it's sort of an overarching view on where you're trying to go and where you're trying to take the business. As part of that, you will also cover off things like the structure of the business, the operations, and the control or controls in place of who does what in the business. Why is governance important? it's at a base level, good governance allows the business to keep operating. And it keeps operating so that the shareholders and owners will want to keep investing in the business, so that other funders such as banks and other funders will want to keep supplying funds for the business, that the team members are engaged with where the business is going and what it's doing, and they buy into the direction and the vision of where the company's going. You want your suppliers to keep supplying you, and of course you want your customers to keep coming back. And then finally, regulators is sort of part of one of the roles of governance, is to make sure you're complying with the various regulations, make sure the business is operating inside its legal boundaries and social boundaries. Especially in today's world, it's not just a matter of what's in law, it's also a matter of what is the social license and our ability to operate in society. Measurable benefits. So what sort of things can we measure? So the better execution of business opportunities is really the planning for it's about planning for the outcomes of the business. So we can focus better on the planning and therefore the vision of the business, and therefore that creates opportunities that are aligned with where we want to take our business and where we want it to go. Having a good vision and direction and governance in the business provides some sense of security for the lenders who are going to operate, who are going to lend money to allow the cash flow of the business and allow it to continue to grow. You, as a governance board, you're also looking at the risks of the business. So you're always monitoring those risks and trying to mitigate those risks as best you can. And it's a working, the ability to step back from your business is a work there, that term to sort of work on your business rather than in your business. So if you think of things from a governance level, you are taking that step back to look at the business from a slight distance and working on the business rather than just doing the day-to-day stuff. And the last measurable benefit there is, of course, the whole reason why we're sort of running a business is to try and maximise the value for its shareholders, so that everyone, so the shareholders are getting a good return on their investment. Ten hats. So this is a slide out of some of our other webinars we've done. But the idea of the 10 hats is that in any business there are effectively 10 roles, and the problem, or not the problem, but what happens in a lot of small businesses is you've got one or two owners in the business who happen to wear all of those hats, and it's then very hard to then split out your strategic thinking from your operational thinking when you're wearing all the hats. And the idea of having a board of directors is that you've got some people that just focus on that side of the line, and you can still have your owner who is on the board and also engaged in all the other hats of the business, but simply pulling them aside and having that meeting every month or every couple of months where you actually then focus on the role of the board and the strategic direction of the business will ultimately help that business. So on the top end of our scale here, on our graphic, on our diagram here, we have our shareholders, and these are the people who invest their money in the business and are ultimately the ones who we are there to look after and serve. You then have your board of directors who set the direction of the business, set the vision, the direction, the goals. They tend to employ, in a larger business, they will employ the CEO, and the CEO will be given instructions about what it is that the directors wish the CEO to do. So then on the below the line there, you have your operational side of things, which is your leadership, your CEO, general manager, or multiple managers who are in the operational side of the business. And you've got a number of hats under them. So you've got your product and service, which is about delivering the products and services that create cash for the business. That the products that you're going to sell. The operations and delivery is the actual delivery of those products. The sales is about making the sale. Your marketing is about getting the leads or the people in the door to make the sales too. Your finance team is looking after all the finances and bookkeeping. Your technology and administration is about efficiency and trying to make the whole thing run as efficient as you can. And human resources is about employing staff, looking after them, making sure they're working effectively, carrying out the roles they need to carry out. So many businesses, the owner is wearing all those hats, and the idea of the slide is just to try and separate out the distinction between where the directors should sit in the strategic side of things and the operational side of things. Go. No, slides are stopped. We'll give it a second to catch up. Oh, now it's jumped to back one. There we go. So, governance versus managing. This diagram helps to differentiate between the manager from a governance role. So, managing type roles are ones where to do with the operation of the business. The managers tend to be accountable to the CEO or to the board. They are there to implement the strategies that the board has provided for them, and that they are monitored by how well they are meeting and delivering those strategies and delivering their tasks that have been sent for them to do. Your governance on the top side of the line there is accountable to the shareholders of the company, and they are responsible for strategy and setting the vision, determining the strategies to achieve the vision, and the business's purposes and effective governance culture. They governing side of stuff hold people to account, hold mainly the CEO to account, to make sure the CEO is actually delivering on meeting those strategic goals that the governance side have set. Okay, 4 pillars of governance. So this is a bit of theory. We're getting into sort of the 4 common pillars of governance. And our first one here is purpose. So the board should be leading exploration and development of the company's purpose. It should be leading the search for its goals and its strategies to achieve those goals, defining those and setting down as to what the purpose of the company is. And next one there is the culture. So the board works with management to make sure there's a healthy environment in which to operate, that the HR works within that environment, and that they're setting the culture for which they want the business to operate. Really important part of business these days is to have a great culture, to be able to engage with not just your team, but you want your team engaged in the direction of the business, and they are going to buy in better if you're better at putting forward that vision of where the company's going. So it's a culture for your team. It's also the culture with your customers, and the culture with your suppliers, and the culture with all third parties that the business is working with. Our next pillar, accountability. So governance holds management to account, and it does that through meeting with them. It does that through, when I say meeting with them, they don't normally meet with the whole management team, but they'll meet with the CEO, and the CEO is effectively responsible for the rest of the team. So they will meet with them, and they'll get regular reports. So there's your financial reports, but also reports on meeting objectives of the business, reports on how projects are going, and reports on various matters that the board might be dealing with at that time. And our 4th pillar there is compliance. So in law and in most legislation that deals with operation of companies, it is everything tends to come back onto the board. So the board take responsibility for meeting their obligations. The directors are the ones who take responsibility for making sure the financial statements are prepared and signed off and audited or filed with any government bodies they should be filed with. The board is also responsible for health and safety. And while the board might make the CEO carry out the tasks of making sure the health and safety plan or make sure the financial statements are done, it's the board who ultimately takes that responsibility, and they're the ones who can be penalised and fined for not complying with a lot of that stuff. So it's the board who wants to make sure that the company meets its obligations as far as compliance with various government departments and government regulators. And also, as we're seeing a lot more now, there's a social license. They talk about company social license as an ability to operate in the community. So, just by doing stuff that complies with the law is not enough. And we've seen some good examples of that in the media lately with companies getting into a bit of strife online and social media stuff, with cancel culture being quite widely used now to attack companies that are not seen to be walking the walk and talking the talk. So, yeah, very good. Right, so does this really apply to small businesses? So that's a natural question. A lot of small businesses don't seem to understand what governance is, and they're just too busy doing the doing and getting on with running their business. And it's something that we strongly believe that taking that time out of your business to step aside from it, think about its direction, its goals, its purpose, and to sort of have that sort of governance type look at things is really good value. And it's, like I said, it's something that can be scaled. On a small business, you might do that 3 times a year. On a large business, you might be doing that every month. And the type of tasks that you can put onto the board and the size of the board and how many people are involved in the board is all quite flexible. There's no model that says a board must be made up of 8 people, that must be 4 male and 4 female, and they must meet 3 times a month. There's nothing like that. You make a board up to fit your business, and you meet as often as you need it to meet, so that it's providing value to your business. But it really does help with some structure around that working on the business rather than working in the business. Because even myself, you arrive at work in the morning, you open your email, and all of a sudden your head's just full of all the stuff you need to do for the day. And you do need to set that time aside every month or a couple of months just to step back, think about where is my business going and what's the strategies to achieve that. Okay, the importance of a simple framework. I'm all into keeping things simple. Keep it simple, stupid. If it's simple, we tend to do it. All right. If we make things too complicated, too difficult, then we don't do it. So, like I said, a board doesn't have to be big. It can be quite small, but you're probably best to engage others in your board. A board of 1 is, in theory, a board, but it's probably not very effective because no one's going to ask you the difficult questions. And even if it's you start off with a advisory board in your business that has maybe 3 people, and it has yourself as the business owner, maybe ourselves as your accountants, and maybe someone else who you trust, who understands your industry or knows your business, who can be beneficial to sit around the table and be part of that. So yeah, engage with others. It can be 1 or 2 other people, or up to 6 or 8 other people. I say it's quite flexible. You want to schedule in regular meetings and have a framework for your meetings, like an agenda that sets out these are the topics that we are going to cover. And you can schedule those different topics at different times during the year, so that over the whole year you cover a range of areas that you should be covering as a board. So that leads nicely onto the annual work schedule. So the annual work schedule is a list of projects and actions that a board needs to cover off. You also need to allow time into your schedule to do projects that are to do with the development of the business or the development of the vision of the business. But there are a number of things that you can schedule into your board meetings on a regular basis so that you cover them off over the year and think about what is the best time to do that. So some of those things, especially fall around the financial year. So, near the end of the year, you want to be, reviewing your last year's accounts. You want to be setting your budget for the year ahead. You want to be thinking about how the audit process is going to work if you require an audit, and the time frame between the accounts, the audit, and the final sign-off of meetings, and all those things that are an important part of the end of the year as far as financial goes. Here's a simple schedule, and we're just going to flip through some of the headings on here. Like I say, you can build your own schedule. It can be as flexible as you like, but here's just an example anyway. We can have we work through. So in this case here, we've got our months across the top. You can see them marked out there from January through to December. And then down on our left-hand side, we're going to add in tasks and schedule in when we're going to do them. So a business plan, planning about where your business is going to go. That fits under your vision and direction. You then have a plan about how you're going to achieve those goals. And we like to suggest probably a 1 or 2 page business plan, sort of a high level plan, and you should be reviewing that a couple of times a year. In this case here, they've got it sort of 4 times a year. Small business might just do it once a year. But the idea is you schedule into your meetings that these are the meetings that we're going to pull up our business plan and give it a kick. See if it needs changing. Is it still fit for purpose? Are we still achieving, meeting those same objectives? Have some of the things in there changed, or we've decided that some things are not worth pursuing anymore? We're changing our plan. Roles and responsibilities, so organisational structure review. Hopefully you've all sort of seen those structural diagrams and sort of draw out where everyone sits in the business. So once you've got your plan as to where things are meant to be heading for the year, it's a matter of have we got the right people in the right slots to achieve our business plan to make it fall into place. And in any business, there's a number of people, all with different skills. Some people have skills across different wide range of capabilities, and it's a matter of do we shuffle things around to make it work better? Do we have some more roles we need to add in? Have we got some roles that are no longer required and we need to refocus those people into other areas of our business? Budgeting and forecast, we mentioned around the beginning of the year, you sort of do a draft budget, and then normally the CEO or management team might come up with the draft budget. The board will sit down and review it and pull it apart and suggest some changes, and then the management team would come back with their final draft before the end of the financial year, setting out what they plan to achieve in the next 12 months. Performance reports. So, any sort of board meeting, you need an update really on the performance of the business. So that's your profit and loss reports for the previous month or months or however long it's been between meetings, and normally a commentary from the CEO as to what's happening, what's new, what's going on, what they need help with. And a couple of things in here, risk register. So as one of the roles of the directors or board directors is to just keep an eye on the risks of the business. So we've got some ideas in there, updating the risk register. If you identify a risk, it's easier to put in place strategies to mitigate it. Even if the risk is not likely, it's still a handy idea to have a plan for when it does happen. We've got a basic idea of how we're going to deal with it. Most businesses have some insurance, and that comes around for an annual review. So your insurance broker will tend to present a report on your insurances, and it's a matter of asking questions and working through that report to make sure you're aware of the risks the business is taking, what risks you're insuring for, and what risks you're not insuring for that you, of course, are just covering, taking your own self-insurance for, if you like. And what else we got there? Compliance, things like bank covenants, just making sure they're all good. And then board evaluation. It's all good that we are reviewing the CEO and making sure the CEO's doing his or her task, and that the management team are doing what they should be doing. But it's actually also good to do sort of an internal review of the board at least once a year. This normally involves some sort of questionnaire that boards will fill out and submit to the chair of the board. And the ones I've been in the past, the chair would then sit down with each of the board members, talk about what they've brought to the table over the last year, what they think's good, where they could be doing better, and just that continuous improvement of every part of the organisation, including the board members. You don't want a board of people that have been there for too long. You do want to see some turnover. You do want to see some fresh minds coming in, and a mixture of retention of skills and retention of history and understanding, but also a bit of turnover there too. So there is times when board members do just need to, thank them for their service and move on and recruit someone else to come in. Right. Meeting rhythms. So what we're talking about here is basically how often to meet. Whether it's a bigger business might meet monthly, especially if there's a lot going on. In times where we end up in effectively sort of emergency type situations where, like sort of when COVID arrived and we had to make lots of decisions really quick, sometimes there were board meetings every couple of weeks, just so the CEO could update with what's changing and how we're adapting and what's going on and keeping the board up to date. But they can be frequently changed, can be monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, and once you sort of get your team of board members together, you want to sit down at the beginning of the year and block out all the meetings for the year, because there's nothing worse than having a board meeting and you've got a board of 4 and 2 people don't turn up, and it's really just a waste of time. So it's really important that people who commit to being part of a board, that they are there, and that the diaries are filled out at the beginning of the year so something else doesn't come along, and if it does, then can the meeting be moved to accommodate. It's got to be given priority really, and you want those people who are part of the board to be turning up on a regular basis. So agree on a format, an agenda, the length, what sort of reports should be submitted up front. You don't want too many. You don't want reports arriving on the day. You want your reports, your financial reports, your CEO report, your marketing report, your operations manager's report. You want all those things out probably the week before, no more than 2 days before, so that the board have got time to digest all that information. And I've sat on boards and we've had over 200 pages of reports come through to us 2 days before a meeting, and it's it's too much to try and digest all that information that's in there, and it's all important, or else why would they be sending it to the board members? So there's different ways of doing things. I've been on boards before where reports were just set out as they were done. So sometimes you'd get a report a month out from a meeting, and you'd get one out for a week out from the meeting, and different times, and you'd sort of read them as they came through, and then the day before the meeting you'd probably sit down and have a skim over all those reports, prepare your notes and be ready for the meeting to discuss what it is that's going to be discussed. So you try and get the reports out. You don't want your financial reports and your CEO reports out at least a few days before. Good idea to keep minutes. I don't know the value of keeping too much detail on the minutes, but you want a rough idea of what went on at the meeting. And if it's a formal sort of organisation where things have to be passed by resolution, then of course you need those minutes to support those board decisions that are minuted. With corporates or companies, there are certain things that have to be minuted, such as adding in new directors and changing shareholders, and those sorts of things require minutes as required by the Companies Act. So they, of course, need to be kept and filed. Trusts have, increased reporting requirements too for trusts, and you do get operating trusts that are effectively companies, but they're not. They're trusts. They have trustees that are effectively the board who have to keep minutes and things of those sort of things. Right, so you set out your timetable, make sure everyone can be there, and block it out for the year. Have an agreed format, run to a program, keep the meeting short and sharp, but don't limit the time too much. You want to be able to have free-flowing discussion. You want the views of the table to come out, and you want a chairperson who can run a meeting, get all the views, extract all the views out of all the participants, and try and get some consensus out at the end as to what the decision is going forward. Right. An agenda. So I've got an example of agenda here. So fairly straightforward sort of stuff. Minutes of the last meeting, actions from the last meeting, an update on where they are and what's happened with those. Reports from the CEO, performance reports, financials, budget forecasts, cash flow statement position, an update of the risk register, any new risks, anything else that's changed, strategy and decision making. So this is where you have your decision papers. So I talk about the reports before the meeting. It's good if you've got a CEO who can identify the stuff that needs a decision made on it and can have a structure for a decision paper that comes forward with the background information on that decision, so that people have a chance to read up on that topic, and then in your meeting you discuss the topic and you make a decision as a board about which way you're going to go. Strategy and business planning updates and organisational updates, structures and so on. Then we just sort of have a bit of a, follow up with a bit of general information. There might be a bit of question time. There might be just general business, and updating the upcoming actions, and recommit to the outstanding actions, and then a review of the meeting and a right at the end to sort of set your next meeting or reconfirm everyone knows when the next meeting is. One thing that's in there that I think is really important, and that is to have your board only time. And that's normally near the beginning of the meeting, and it might just be 10 minutes where the board can meet without the management and the CEO. And because there's always things you need to discuss, not always, but often there's things you talk about the CEO. And maybe it's the CEO's remuneration package, maybe it's the performance of the CEO, maybe it's something else that's going on. In a family-owned managed business, of course, that doesn't happen because the owner is the CEO and on the board, and it's just a wee bit different kettle of fish. But yeah. All right. So, developing governance skills. Often when people go into business, they went into business doing something that they were passionate about, something they enjoyed doing, something they loved doing, and they have learnt those skills for their passion over their lifetime. They may have done that formally through an institution, they may have learnt it on the job, they may have learnt it from attending training or wherever else, and they've gone and created a business doing whatever it is that they want to do. The skills of running a board or being a board member are sort of not something you come across in everyday life, I suppose. You actually need to go out of your way to spend a bit of time learning some of the stuff and to invest a bit of time in understanding what it is to be on a board or to be a director on a board. But they're all things we can learn, and there's lots of information, there's lots of stuff around to help us do that. Like this webinar, for example, is an introduction as to what governance is and being a board is. But yeah, there's quite a lot in it. I suppose as an accountant, we have a bit of a head start because we tend to understand financials. But everyone on a board does need to have a good understanding of how to read financial statements. Often they're not as there's no hidden message in them, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. People try to think there's something mysterious about financial statements, and it's often just as straightforward as what they are. So, but you need to understand what they mean and the interaction between expenses and assets and liabilities and income and balance sheets and profit loss and those sort of basic core accounting skills. You want to have a good understanding of yourself and others, awareness of how to help others and how to work with other people, how to get the key strengths out of other people, and how to figure out what motivates them and helps them to achieve what they're trying to do. So it's a very important soft skill, that understanding of other people. Planning, being able to have some foresight, think ideas, think outside the box, being able to mind map and diagram stuff on the wall to help extract out some ideas and plans is something you learn by doing. It's very hard to say this is how you come up with an idea. An idea is something you come from experience and being open and prepared to talk about other people with your thoughts. We're up to number 4, directing. Fundamental purpose of the business is to create value for others. A great director does this by directing others in the business professionally and with humility, get the words right. Getting the best out of other people, and that's what managing is. Managing is working with other people to achieve the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And good managers can work out which people have got the right skill sets or the better skill sets to achieve better results, and work with those that maybe don't, that need a bit of help, or refocus them on stuff that they are better on. So managing is about working with other people. Leading, so wanting to be able to inspire others in the team, inspire the direction of inspire the business through the vision and the goals which are set by the directors, is leading the rest of the team through the CEO, the management, and right down to all the staff, everyone involved in the business. That's a key part. And teaching, if you're excited about the teaching process and understand that everyone learns differently, and that everyone can learn and you can help everyone else achieve more, then that's a really key skill of being a director, and passing on those knowledge to other people. How are we going for time? Oh, we're just on 4:40. Not too bad. Just about to wrap this up now, I think. So right size governance. So as I mentioned, it's the right size for your business. There's no one size fits all. For the governance, it's about having everything you need to have for governance, but not everything you don't need, if that made any sense at all. But anyway, we're going to talk about it a bit more in our part 2 of our governance series. We're going to do that in about 5 weeks time, Monday the 13th. So I'd like you to all come back and join us then, and we'll work through that next session. What you can do now, have a bit of a think about what we've talked about today, focus on what you could implement in your business to bring in some governance, whether that is just catching up with your accountant twice a year to talk about the goals and direction of your business, or whether that's putting in place a small board or something along those lines. Commit to coming to our next webinar, 4 p.m. Monday the 13th. And if you want to come and have a chat, we're happy to have a chat. We do complimentary meetings for clients or for new clients. If you want to catch up, have a coffee and a chat about what you're doing, what your governance requirements might be for your business, then please do that. That work schedule that we demonstrated in this webinar, happy to flick out copies to anyone who wants a copy of that. And if you want us to be part of an advisory board, I'm more than happy to do that. Difficult thing to put a price on up front over the internet, but if we can sit down and work out how often you want to meet, how much involvement you want from us, whether you want us to be involved with preparing some financials, or whether you might even just have your own accountant who does those financials, and you're wanting a second accountant on the board or someone on the board who can interpret what's going on for you, then come and have a chat, have a coffee. We can always happy to be engaged. Of course, we do charge our services, but we can work out what the fee might be based on how often and how much of our services you want. Now, so I've talked quite a bit. I don't know if there's any questions come through. It's we didn't really have a lot of questions for you guys to answer, but if anyone's got anything there, Shana, has anything come through?
We haven't had anything come through during the webinar.
All right, that's cool. We'll just wrap it up then. So final say for the day, the board's role is to pull management out of the trees so that it can see the forest. I think it's very fitting, and I just want to thank you all for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed our webinar today. come and visit our Facebook page, YouTube page, because I've got about half a dozen or about 12 different webinars up there now on all sorts of different topics. It's really nice to see them starting to get some hits on them too. So thank you for attending. We'll see you all again next month, and all the best out there with your vision, goals, and governance. Thank you.